Because this, in many ways, comes under the backdrop of Obamacare. Certainly a big issue that we saw in the midterms, regardless of where you were, especially in red states, that was the hammer that they won races with. Now, as we've talked about in this program, Supreme Court has said they are prepared to hear a challenge to the Affordable Care Act. This is opponents argue that the tax credits extended to some recipients are illegal. Now, MIT economist Jonathan Gruber, who was one of the administration's consultants for the bill, he claimed the authored it. There's a debate as to how much were his fingerprints and others, but needless to say, the guy was involved in this. He's under attack over comments that he made last year saying that, quote, the stupidity of the American voter was a factor in passing Obamacare in 2010.
If you had a law which said healthy people are going to pay in, it made explicit that healthy people pay in and sick people get money, it would not have passed. Okay, just like the people, lack of transparency is a huge political advantage. And basically, call it the stupidity of the American voter or whatever. And that passed, because the American voter is too stupid to understand the difference.
Okay, he's an idiot, but the point that he made here is certainly going to play into the dialogue as to what happens next in Washington for this. And while people across the country are taking jabs at the law, I want to show you a poll number that I think will surprise you, okay? Most Americans that are now getting this coverage, they like it, and they like it going away. A Gallup poll just out today shows 71% of Obamacare recipients said their coverage through the exchanges wasn't just okay, it was either good or excellent. Less than 20% saying their coverage was fair, and only 9% saying it was poor. There's a lot of other metrics I can throw at this thing here, but if the Republicans decide to go for a 53rd time, like we think they will, to try and repeal it, it's never going to get signed by the president, and they're going to really try and modify the heck out of this thing, will it be a political winner for them? They campaigned on it. Will it be a winner for them, or is this 2.0 approach of the president trying to resell this thing, is he going to find more people, the more they know about it, like it, than don't?
Well, I think the poll is not out of sync with my experience, which is that after you put aside the rollout, which was incredibly flawed and really hurt us politically, in my opinion, the actual substance, many people are satisfied with and pleased with their coverage and pleased with the concept that someone they know is covered and that they're no longer paying when that person goes to the emergency room because that person now has insurance and is going to the doctor. I mean, you got to make it personal. But I think your question is, and this is where it's so unfortunate we've gotten to this point in the national politics, and this election will extend it. Any other big bill, and I know from my years in the legislature, you have to fix it. It's got lots of little mistakes. Yeah. This thing was huge, it was complicated, it has wording errors, it has technical errors. That's what you do, cleanup bills, but you don't have warfare over the cleanup. You just sit together and you fix it and you reach a compromise.
That's the fear. Now, to try and edit on the margin instead of the main. You open up the process to try and tweak this thing. The other side's like, no, we want to blow the whole thing up altogether. And not because the Assemblywoman's here, but the problem is her son communicated and articulated what this thing far better than any other administration folk I've heard. Do you have any confidence that the administration can kind of repackage and resell this thing this time around better than they did for the last 4 years?
Well, I would hope they are moving past the stage of reselling or repackaging this, because if that's the case, you're going to be in trouble. Because I think the Republicans will win that argument on the merits. But you see, Richard, this is exactly what I'm talking about when we started on immigration. The president has a lot at stake here. We already know that they won't be able to, they won't be able to overturn Obamacare, but they can cause trouble to it with a death by 1,000 cuts, defunding segments, as you know, before the Supreme Court, blah, 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 blah. So you have that issue coming up, right? Obamacare. And don't forget, you have Loretta Lynch standing by as the new Attorney General of the United States. And Republicans have already said, wait, we're not going to do this rush in December. We're going to wait until January when there's a new Congress.
I hear you, but for 6 years now, Republicans have been, what they think of the president. They hate that they're not in the Oval Office. And they got to show in the next 2 years that now that they're running the House and the Senate, the adults are in charge, they're going to try and sell, and they got to get stuff done. If they're going to hold up, a black female qualified candidate for attorney general just because if they're going to try and do stuff that the public knows is a waste of time in repealing Obamacare, if they're going to, it's not going to play well. Now, think about it for a second. The immigration,
maybe not in the Northeast.
All right, how about outside the Northeast? The Latino vote in the Southwest, the Latino vote out West. What do you think they're saying tonight? They're saying, finalmente, the president looking out for me is going to do something about this. That's why I think that Republicans privately are mad the president got out in front of this, because they want immigration reform. They want to get this issue off the table so they don't have to defend themselves in 16 on. They need the Latino electorate. They need it, and they helped them win in the midterm.
Richard, I agree with your point about they need the Latino electorate. I agree with your point on the president of being on the offensive rather than constantly being the one defending himself. But this, for Republicans, when it comes to immigration, all the base wants to hear is enforcement.
But the base isn't
enforcement.
The base isn't enough to win a national election. You need some of the independents.
But you have to have the base.
Okay.
You have to have the base.
They got the base. Where else are they going to go? They're going to vote for Hillary? Come on. Okay? The base is there. They need to get some of the independents here. And just like Democrats have their own food fight internally about who is in charge, the left or the moderates, the Republicans got to figure out, is it the Tea Party that we got to run to and appease, or are we going to try and start courting some folks in the middle? Now, when we come back here, we're going to go from Washington to Albany, and we're going to ask the Assemblyman what happens next here. Obviously, major changes happen on election night here, but how does that impact big issues, fracking, etc.? We'll get into all that after this.